thank you very much. I just wanted to give you a little bit of a personal reflection on the power of storytelling. In the service design world, user research, as we know, is the beating heart of what we do. However, people are complex and have user patterns and rationales behind their behaviours that we wouldn't always expect. That's why we do the research, after all. This can make it hard to see into the minds of the end users, your end users, but also your service providers as well. And even more hard when you're trying to capture those behaviours in order to communicate them to others in a way that makes sense and sheds light on what motivates people to act in the way that they do. In the business world, the power of creating a compelling narrative to tell a story for marketing purposes is well known. You'll probably all have heard of the Hovis advert, which pulled on our heartstrings, the boy taking his bike up the hill. And we empathised with him. That was an old advert back in 1973, but I think it was voted Britain's most favourite ad. But it actually put us, very much in an understanding that the company, Hovis, was an old company and that it was a caring company. So stories can help you develop easy narratives to which others can actually relate. And when you're surfacing insights into your research data, that can be very useful. If you're shaping a student journey map, for instance, you can better define key moments or pain points within that journey. And the stories that you tell around that can help you put other people into the shoes of the end user or the student and see the world actually through their eyes. So today we're going to look at several different ways that you can build a story and how to build a story, how you put a story together, and you'll have some chances to be writing your own stories too. Before we get into that, I just wanted to tell you a little bit of a story about part of the journey of a student that I shadowed as part of an exercise that we did looking at the international student experience of enrolment and registration at a middle-sized university. So this student was assigned to me by the member of academic staff. He turned up for his first day for enrolment and registration. And it was explained that I was going to be shadowing him as he was going through the enrolment process, actually stalking, if you like. I was stalking, but I couldn't interact with anything he was doing. I was literally just observing and making notes. And it was so insightful to actually see what was happening to that student, to follow him around and see how everybody was trying to be helpful and supportive from their own particular perspective, but they were using words to him like you haven't matriculated, or you now need to go to the mezzanine. And his English was very good, but he was really beginning to struggle with some of this stuff. I tried not to intervene when he was ping-ponged around the university for various reasons, but at one point I had to intervene when he was actually just setting off in completely the wrong direction for where he needed to be. So we had loads of learning points that came out of that observation, but the key thing I remember particularly was it'd taken about 4 hours for this poor guy, because there were problems with his admission, there were problems with his the way he'd not engaged with the online enrolment first, so he needed to go through all of that, and he was being shoved around the place. But at the very end, he actually got to the final desk where he'd be given his student card. I mean, I knew this, but he didn't know what was happening to him on his journey. And he was coming to the end of that part of the queue, and the person who was giving the cards out actually had her back to the walkway, so he walked straight past her. So I had to stop him and say, look, this is where you collect your card. And she turned around and said, name, and he gave her his name, and she pressed the button and the card came out. And he sort of looked at it and he said, and will I get my library card? And it wasn't explained to him what that card was. The fact it was his library card, it was his ID card, it was his entry onto the campus card. And he walked away and he looked a bit crestfallen, and so I said, well, welcome to the university, we're so glad you've joined us, it's absolutely fantastic that you're here. And he said, is that it now, am I done? I said, yes, you're done, you're now a fully fledged member of the university, that's absolutely brilliant. So I went back to have a word with the lady who'd been dishing the cards out and just said, I've been there a long time, but I don't quite recognise your face, which department are you working in? She said, oh, I'm a temp, I've been brought in, I've just been told to hand these cards out. And I wouldn't blame her, because it hadn't been explained to her the significance of what it was that she was doing. But it was so insightful to think that, her response was, I'm just a temp. And we had so many learning points that came out of that one observation that actually led us to make marked improvements to how we actually deal with enrolment and registration, not just for international students, but for all the students. So that's my little story that I wanted to share with you. And I'll now hand back to, I think it's Katie.
Yes, thank you very much, Jean. Thanks for that lovely introduction. I think that we've all experienced different interactions like that, and that's exactly why we're here, is to try and make work better overall. Someone that can tell us a little bit about that is our guest speaker this afternoon. We're really privileged to have Simon Hewitt, Vice Principal, and going away to be Principal of Dundee and Angus College, to tell us a little bit about his journey with service design. So I will stop sharing and I'll pass over to Simon so that he can take the reins from here.
Thank you, Katie. I will hopefully get technology to work here. Okay.
Yeah.
Can everyone see that okay?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Simon.
Perfect. Well, that's test one done. Thankfully, I've passed that one. But no, honestly, the pleasure's all mine, and it's an absolute honour and a privilege to be speaking to this group today. And really what I hope to give you is just a wee bit of an insight on my journey, a pretty open and honest one as well, just to kind of give you a flavour for the journey I've come through personally, but also the journey that I've come through from a career point of view as well. So with that in mind, I became a lecturer in 2007. Came in as a fresh-faced, certainly a lot more fresh-faced than what I am at the minute, computing lecturer. Within a few years got promoted to the head of computing. Then in 2013 got promoted to the head of the creative and digital industries, onto vice principal, and as Katie said, I've become principal of the college on the 1st of August. So, you know, a pretty rapid journey, but one that has been an absolute ball. So why am I telling you this? Well, I'm not telling you this from the point of view of, wow, look at me, and you know, what an impressive CV. I actually kind of stepped back and reflected on all this, and at each point in my promotions, there was a crisis happened. So when I first got promoted to my very first head of computing job, there was £4 million worth of savings needed within the college. And I was also getting made head of a hugely failing department, which was the worst performing one in Scotland. In 2013, both Dundee College and Angus College merged in the infamous mergers that were happening right across Scotland. Then when I became vice principal, the college had seen a 3-year in decline. So all of our major performance indicators, our results, our student recruitment, our attendance, basically every single metric that you could imagine was in decline. And then obviously at this point is the COVID crisis. But actually looking back on all these things, they've all been opportunities for change. They've all been opportunities to think differently, do things differently, and really kind of change mindsets. And when I reflect back on myself, actually these are the types of environments and the situations that I thrive in and really enjoy. But I must admit, you know, when I first became vice principal, you know, I was fine being a head of department, and I was fine being a head of sector. I really understood my subject. I knew kind of how to advise. But when I became a vice principal, I felt pretty lost, to be honest with you. At that point, I couldn't really, you know, rely on the technical skills or understanding. The things had changed. People looked at me differently. People spoke to me differently, and there was a heck of a lot of pressure and weight of expectation. The whole sector at this point was looking, because it was very surprising that this young vice principal had been appointed and had jumped a few levels. So I felt pretty lost and pretty under pressure. I wasn't quite sure the direction that would take. I really questioned myself and actually my own ability. I thought, I don't know if I can do this. And as you do, you kind of scratch around and you wonder, how am I going to approach this? Until one day I had that light bulb moment, and we had a really early on first service design workshop, and I'll put my hand up and say I was a skeptic. I attended thinking, oh, another thing that I need to go to. I've got so many other things that I need to do, but it was a really kind of intro session to service design. And we got through the introduction piece, but then we got sent out to do some user research. And basically it was around what student wants. And before it, we did a bit of an exercise, and it was, well, they want industry relevant courses, and they want high quality equipment, and they want differentiation in their learning and ways of understanding that. And I was a bit like, oh, this will be a bit of a waste of time. But when we sat down with the students, actually what they wanted was their bursary quicker. They wanted access to wider college services and understand how to do that and what was on offer. They wanted a smoother application and enrolment process. And whilst, yeah, they wanted industry relevant courses, etc., it was actually all these other things that were much more of a priority. And for me at that point, the light bulb really did come on, and I thought, actually, what a novelty, speaking to people to understand a bit more about what they want and how we can change and shift. And I think from my point of view, service design really suited my thirst for change and innovation. I thought, there was lots of different sparks came off that, thinking, well, actually, yeah, we could change that process, or no, that would be a lot easier to do it that way. How about we think about this slightly differently? And from going from that lost feeling of not really knowing where to start, I suddenly started to think, actually, I know exactly where we need to start. We need to start by speaking to our students and speaking to our staff. And from there, things escalated. And, I don't mind saying to you that service design was a bit of a saviour for me. It really made me focus. It made me clear in how I would work. And I learned really early on that, whilst service design is a vehicle to take you to a destination, the actual destination is inclusivity, so getting people involved. So, it wasn't the fact that it was service design was the be all and end all. The actual light bulb was more about the inclusivity and getting people involved in conversations and discussion, understanding their views and understanding what the needs were. So that then escalated, from there, almost everything that we've done over the kind of 4 years, any big change or rapid change that the college has made has had some form of service design or tools and methods underpinning it. The award that we won for the Good to Great strategy, which was a national award, was all underpinned by service design methodology. We co-created our new school-college partnerships, and some of the outcomes of that have just been truly remarkable. 3-4 years ago, we went from having about 400 in our senior phase. Now we've 1,800 in our senior phase. The options that we have co-created with our local authorities and the different options and choices now that are available have all been underpinned by that need to work differently and more collaboratively. We did a college-wide restructure, which was a pretty painful process. But would you believe we got the people that were under threat and the people that had to apply for their own jobs to co-design actually what the new roles looked like. So they had a sense of buy-in, they had a sense of contributing to what these new roles were. And that went down really well. You hopefully can see in the top right, this was where we designed actually what that role would look like. And from that, we were able to build job descriptions that were actually built from those that would be doing the job instead of senior management or management. And that has worked, has worked really well. The numerous kind of new processes and procedures that we've done, but also through leadership development. We've underpinned our leadership development forum, and again, in the bottom left, you can see we created a thing called the D&A Way. What is it? What is the D&A Way? What does it mean to be a leader in Dundee and Angus College? And that was all co-created by the leaders. We created our kind of D&A way pledge and our social contract between each of us about what that would look like. Again, all contributed to by the new leaders. And our board of management, so our 2025 strategy was written and co-designed with our board using service design. So for me, you know, whilst I've enjoyed it and I've embraced it and I've been really involved in it and trying to kind of make sure that it's adopted across the college, there is still that same old thinking, and for me, same old thinking will get same old results. And just to kind of give you an insight, I started this principal role on the 1st of August. And one of the kind of options for the interview I did was, so we had a stakeholder session with our board, we had a session with staff, and we had a session with students. And I had to run a kind of hour-long session with each. And for all 3 sessions, I used service design and used tools and methods of kind of co-creating what a new college would look like. The staff loved it. The students absolutely loved it, but the board didn't. It was out of their comfort zone. It was very much not a traditional method that they were used to. So when I went into the final panel interview, one of the questions that got put to me by one of the more mature board members was, we're a little bit worried about your obsession with service design. And sometimes a leader just has to make decisions. And at that point, I'm not going to lie, I got a bit frustrated and actually got on the front foot and said, actually, I think you're missing the point. The point here isn't the vehicle that is service design. The point here is actually speaking to people, to getting their views, to listening, to involving them, to understanding their point of view. This isn't about a gimmick that is service design. This is about involving people and creating the future. And, you know, for me, it's about admitting that you don't know the answers. It's about allowing risk-taking and creativity. And it's about evolving or dying. And, you know, your biggest asset are your people and your students, so they should be involved in the future of the college. This was accepted. I had no choice with you, but it showed me the difference between traditional and modern leadership and that way of thinking. And it's something that we all still have to work really, really hard on. So for me, D&A, you know, I genuinely feel we are a family, we are a community. You know, I often talk about the D&A way, the D&A family, more than just a college. And I believe it. I think we are. We really pulled together. We've got the students' best interests at heart. And, you know, for me, I'm trying to promote a culture that is very much human-centered. But I'm of the belief that it's not just enough to be human-centered. I think you have to be purpose-centered as well. Because there's one thing about understanding the views and taking the views of so many people. If you don't understand your purpose and why you're here and what that destination is and where you're going, then it's really hard to kind of support people and help them understand about the direction that the college is taking. So as a vice principal and as a new principal, I'm really keen that everyone understands our purpose, our direction, what we're here for, how we're building our communities, how we're really supporting the most deprived of our students, the most deprived of our communities, to improve and to exceed in life. That's our purpose, and we achieve that purpose by also being human-centered and being empathetic. And that purpose is difficult. You know, it's a roller coaster just now. Things are really challenging, really hard. It's hard to see that purpose at times and hard to see that direction when we're getting pulled from pillar to post. But, you know, for me, you know, I felt lost when I first became a vice principal. I felt a little bit lost over this kind of last few months about where we're going, what's our purpose. And, you know, like any good leader, I went and Googled how to lead in a crisis, and I got a lot of guff about, you know, methodologies and X, Y, and Z. But when I kind of sat back and reflected and boiled it all down, it was really about adapting, you know, being able to be agile and change decisions, particularly at the minute. So being able to trust and understand that things are going to change and we do need to adapt, and to build a culture that will allow that to happen. To communicate and to continually communicate, keep people up to date and keep them aware of the situation, understand the direction, actually help them understand that it's okay not to feel good at the minute, and we're all in this together, but we'll get there, and we'll get through this. Listening, you know, even when it's what you don't want to hear. Over this period has been really challenging, and spending a lot of time with our trade unions. And, you know, there's a lot of things in there that we don't want to hear, but we have to listen, and we have to keep going with that. Evolving, being innovative, involve students, staff, in the ideas and the decisions for how to kind of move forward. And, you know, I know our own Service Design Academy is doing a lot of work in that, and trying to think about how we adapt and change and involve staff moving forward. And leading, so learning from experience, learning from what we know has worked so far, I think is hugely important. So that's my reflections of this period. Regards to buy-in, because I know from your point of view or others' point of view, one of the big kind of challenges is actually getting managers or senior leaders or boards to buy into this. And again, some of my reflections is about, don't talk about the methodology, don't talk about service design, talk about the challenges, talk about what results, talk about the destination. Because for me, that's what people are interested in. What challenge are we trying to face here? What results are we trying to kind of get out of this? And actually, the kind of methodology is almost irrelevant. It's where you need to get to. Be persistent and take your opportunities. I mean, I walk around basically in my bag with Post-it notes and Sharpies, and, you know, every single opportunity in meetings, I'll be, right, let's map this out, let's stick a Post-it note up, let's think about this. But use those opportunities, you know, even if they're the most ridiculous opportunities. You know, even whenever some of my vice principals come in, they'll say something, I've got the Post-it notes up in the window before they've got a sentence out. And, you know, whilst it's, you see their eyes rolling at times, if I'm persistent and I now see them using it. Build it into culture, strategy and planning. So make it a key part of building culture, strategy and planning. And like I said, it's been a key part of our board strategy building. We are clear on what that looks like. And empowering staff equals innovative and creative staff. So allowing people to be creative, make decisions, and use different methodologies and backing them to do it is absolutely vital for buy-in. And finally, practice what you preach. You know, use it with your teams. I find it's infectious. Use it. I know I'm preaching to the converted here, but, you know, the more you use it, the more persistent we are, the more others will pick it up. And it's great for me walking around the colleges, seeing Post-it notes up and people having sessions that are not your traditional sessions. And these are all the things that make me really proud to be part of this college, and really proud to see the kind of innovation and the creativity that is coming out. You know, we're on a journey. I'm not saying by no means we are perfect, but if you're embedding a culture, if you're empowering your staff, if you're giving them the tools and methodology to think and be different, then, you know, that's something really, really to be proud of. So I hope that has given you a bit of an insight, and I want to say thank you again, and it's been a privilege to chat with you guys.
Thank you so much, Simon. That was fantastic. It just gives people an insight into that senior level approach to service design. And from past events and from discussions that we've had with the network, that's one of the major issues that we have. There have been a few questions coming in for you on Padlet, but I think you pretty much answered them as you went along. And there was one about buy-in right down at the bottom, I think. So there's probably a few that you be better answering, writing them out rather than speaking. Yeah, the one at the start. So what helped people to truly buy in, open up and overcome hierarchy and power dynamics that potentially were there right at the start of this journey?
The big thing for me is following through. You know, it's all well and good having these sessions and, you know, getting staff involved, but actually seeing results, seeing that something that they have contributed to, regardless of how small it is, has been taken on board and has been changed. So, you know, we often talk about, as everyone else does, the quick wins. What are the quick wins? And actually moving really quick on the quick wins is actually really, really important. And that then helps buy-in, because it does allow people to say, actually, you know what, they are taking this serious. But also the point I made about communicating, where it's not an easy fix or where it's not something that can be done. It's not just instantly dismissing that. It's about going back and saying, okay, how do we look at this in a longer term view? How do we actually get a group together? And I think, you know, as a college, we're pretty good at looking at work streams and different approaches. And, you know, I do think following through and what you say you're going to do is vitally important, particularly at senior management level, because there's always that feel of, oh, there's a fake and play where, nah, you know, this is just lip service. And you know, you think about good to great and the good to great strategy, that was built from the ground up. You know, that was built by staff that had frustrations. And, you know, I think that's for me why it was so successful.
Yeah. One last question before I let you go. There was one question on the Padlet about how you aim to keep students involved in the planning for 2021 as we go forward. And I think, you know, given our recent student and staff awards, I think that we can truly say that we're doing that. Can you give us a little explanation into how you see students being at the centre of any planning for blended learning going forward? Yeah,
I mean, I think, you know, when I'd said to you that as part of my interview, there was a session. So I'm someone that needs something tangible. I don't like doing something for the sake of doing something. I like to come out of a session with something tangible. So as part of the session with the students for my interview, I actually created the principal pledge. So through service design, through, you know, a couple of different methodologies, we came out of that 1 hour session with, here's the 3 pledges that I will, you know, 100% to agree to do as a principal. And, you know, the 3 pledges were engage with us regularly. So what we're going to do is have, you know, more focused online virtual Q&As, which is something that we've rolled out that has already been really successful. I'm getting them involved in our SLT meetings. So once a month, Cher is going to come along with one of the lead and student reps, and we're going to actually have them on the agenda as part of our senior leadership team, which has never happened before. We're going to get them involved in the curriculum planning process. And obviously the work that we've done from the point of view of the sessions that you guys have done about co-creation and looking at getting them involved, as well as our industry partners, that's something that's been valued really highly. So there are a number of different ideas, but the great thing for me is that we co-created this principal pledge that I now must follow through with. Otherwise, I'll be seen as a failure in their eyes. So, and that's something that I want to revisit every year, is the principal pledge, and spend more time with them planning about what's really important for the college.
That's absolutely excellent. Thank you so much for your time, for all those insights. And Simon will go back into the Padlet board and answer those questions as well. Thank you so much, Simon. And I hope that you'll be enjoying a drink with us later on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Radka. I'll pass over to you.
Thank you very much. So this was a fantastic story, wasn't it? And it was great to hear how, you know, how Simon talks about it in this sort of storytelling way. And I thought it would be really nice for us as well to sort of share our story with you, share the story of the Service Design Network. And Simon really inspired me, especially that slide with the lost. So I'm going to talk about how we were lost as well, lost and found, I suppose. So my storytelling technique has been inspired by a workshop that I attended, and I thought I really wanted to share this with you. And the workshop was carried out by Andy, who maybe some of you met at our previous event. This is how the story started. So there were three of us, Jean, and Jean was always thinking about, you know, why are these students always queuing? What are all these forms about? And Jean was a really advanced manager and administrator in a university, and her mind was just full of these thoughts. And then there was me, and I kept thinking, why this step 1 doesn't align with this step 2? What's happening with these unhappy students? And how can we make it a bit more smooth? And then, of course, our wonderful Katie, who was, you know, her arms, you can see all over the place, thinking, changing things in the academy and embracing that stuff, feeling and humanity of education. All these three women were sometimes feeling quite lost, but they all were coming from the same place. And then, boom, they made their way to Dundee. Well, believe it or not, this is V&A, Dundee V&A, and they met just 1 year ago in this fantastic environment. So the faith and their belief in humanity and education brought them together. And it brought more colleagues together as well. And as they were talking and sharing their stories and their experiences and their energy over a cup of coffee in a beautiful Service Design Academy, they came up with this idea of setting up a service design network. And you can see a little jam jar here. Yes, it started brewing already there, that there will be a jam, an education jam at some point where we will all get together and design a beautiful future for our education. Well, so it was all going quite well, and these three thought, well, we have a choice now. We can either go back to our own ways, or we can start talking about it to everybody we know, and we can start connecting the world globally, locally. We can start connecting everybody and shouting to everybody that we have this amazing network, that we have lots of ideas. And before you knew it, we had over 100 people following our faith and following our movement. And so in the end, things actually started bubbling quite nicely under the surface. And these three women were no longer alone, and they were a part of something much bigger. And they knew that it's not just the bubbles under the surface, but that there was something much bigger in the sky, including the jam, and that they, together with all these fantastic people who joined up, that they can achieve something much bigger. So this is the story of our network, and I basically followed this very simple template in my storytelling technique. So point number 1 is that you have a character. So you think about who is the character of the story? Where are they? What are they saying? What are they feeling? And you start thinking about their situation as now. Then, boom, something big happens. Something happens that is either fantastic or could be a bit disturbing. And this something makes the character think about an action. And the character then has a choice. How do I react? Do I just shrivel and do nothing? Or do I take my magic sword and move on to point 4, move on to some change, move on to something bigger? So when I did the workshop with Andy, we basically just followed these 4 very simple steps. And so on to a part 2, where now we have our service design in education. It's us, it's you, we are the character, and we are ever so happy. And we've been doing so many things together until, boom, COVID strikes. But, you know, the whole world got disturbed and we all just had to start thinking differently. And so we had a choice, look, 3. We had to take action or just shrivel here in the corner. Well, you can see we didn't shrivel. but we did take our magic sword, which was the power of connection, the power of people around us. And we started coming up with even more ideas, events that some of you have attended. And we started moving on to something even bigger than our little sort of faith and passion for education. We felt that the big change now is going to come. And here we are celebrating our first anniversary, first birthday, and joining forces together with our host, Service Design Academy, who were hosting us in the first place and who are now going to take us together hand in hand and help us become even more influential and even more inclusive in this whole world of complexity in education. So we are now interested about what's your education story. And we were thinking of, just giving you 5 minutes to think about your personal reflection. And I recommend that you just grab a piece of paper and fold it into four quarters, which will make your storytelling much easier, because voila, straight away you will have your template. And you think about the character, then something happens, boom. Then what actions does the character take and what happens in the end? And it can be very simple and hopefully very personal to you. So we will now give you 5 minutes just to think about it on your own, and we will then reconvene to go to breakout room so that you can share it with colleagues who are here with us today. Okay.
Fantastic. Okay, so the hero of my story is Our Growth Academy, and we're looking at the curriculum of the future in this project. So the reason why that we started to look at this was because of the data that was presented to the school that they were looking at. And this isn't just true for Our Growth Academy, where we aren't designing for the people that our services are fit for, but this is happening across our country, across Scotland. And Kat Macaulay, the Chief Design Officer for Scottish Government, quoted an event just recently at the start of the year that we are currently designing for 1.8% of the Scottish population. So that's 1 in 55 people are being asked how they would like to receive their services. And without going into the detail about the data of the school, it was pretty much the same around the fit for purpose curriculum. So at the moment, we have around 30,000 young people unemployed, and we have 225,000 economically inactive. And that's at a stage now, these figures were only released at the start of the week, and that's the annual population survey of 2020. And I will share the link for this Miro board so that you can access these stats and all of the other links that I've got in there. But there's a reason for this data, and there's a reason that we've got to this stage, and it's because at one point in the system, within education, we're letting young folk down. And we're letting young people down in that we're not fulfilling the purpose of education. And it got to a point where Doreen and Gillian and the rest of the people within Our Growth Academy, including the students and the young people, started to say that this isn't good enough and we want to make a change. And they wanted to be able to make education fit for purpose and fit for all. And to give the young people within the school the opportunity to contribute to that. So what did they do? I mean, there's lots of obstacles that are in the way of changing education, and I think Gregor actually gave us a little bit of insight into that, how challenging the system can be, how challenging it can be to get buy-in from the grassroots approach, from the floor up, and all of the different things that teachers experience that we have no idea of the struggles and the strains that goes along with implementing the curriculum, supporting the young people, and finding time to still be innovative. So where do you start with something like that? Now, I particularly like this, and it wasn't my words. This was Chris that wrote this blog. So what do you do when you're successful with the Creative Curriculum Fund bid? You call the A team. No, sorry, they stopped operating in the 80s. You need a mentor to help you, to guide the way. And the mentor in this story is the Service Design Academy. So the opportunity became available for funding for Our Growth Academy, and we worked with Gillian and Doreen to put that funding bid together and to start co-creating and co-designing a different way of working together, and workshops that were going to lead to designing the curriculum of the future. So at the end of last year, we organised 3 different workshops, and this was really the start of our journey, our co-design journey. We started to co-design what the workshops would look like, what we would do with them, and then what we would do with the data afterwards. So looking at the Double Diamond process, which is the Design Council from 2005, we really spent quite a lot of time in that discovery phase. So we were trying to connect with the young people, connect with the staff and the students, and to find out exactly what it was that they were struggling with, what it was that they saw opportunity to improve, and the opportunity to really start this journey of co-designing what the future curriculum would look like. And then at the end of October, we held a day where we were able to bring everybody together, and everybody in the sense that everyone has an equal voice, all opinions are valid, and that also is relevant for the young people. So bringing them in, and these children weren't handpicked, and I think Gillian, you'll stand for that. That these children weren't handpicked. We didn't want the prefects from sit here. We wanted a variety of different students across the board. So what did we do? We invited young people, local council, representatives from the Parent and Teacher Association, support staff, teachers from other Scottish high schools, the college, Skills Development Scotland, Education Scotland, Developing Young Workforce, as well as the senior leadership team, to be able to completely get a really wide, broad approach to what we were doing and get all of their insights as we were starting to create the new things that were going to be going on in this school. So we ran a variety of different workshops, where we had the first workshop we had just with the young people. So we had a variety of school children from secondary 2, year 2 until year 6. And we took the opportunity for them to do user research. So they took part in doing different user interviews, empathy mapping, and starting to co-create what the curriculum in the future would be like. And after that first workshop, what was really surprising for me, and I don't know whether Doreen and Gillian will agree, but was actually the creative confidence in the children. No matter what we said to them, no matter how many exercises we gave with no restraints, they were really reluctant to change the curriculum. So all of their ideas were out of school ideas. So we want an extra class out of school. We want this at the top of the school day, this at the end of the school day. Or we want extra clubs to do this. They were really, really reluctant to change the curriculum. And I think that's because they've been born and bred into a system that says that you can't change that. That's the way that it is, and there's nothing that you can do about it. So it's really, really refreshing to be able to give them the opportunity to be able to experiment and to try different things out. So after the first workshop, we identified 49 different areas of interest. And we held a second workshop just with staff who concentrated on the empathy side of things. So we got staff to do different elements of empathy walking and empathy mapping before interviewing each other and thinking about exactly what the kids would want. We brought it all together, and when the young people and the staff all came together, this was the 6 elements that were honed in on. So that was building relationships, skills, school essentials like the physical design and the environment around you, qualifications, experience, and the importance of the pupil voice. So those were the different lessons that we learned, that actually it's not all about qualifications, and it's not all about getting A grades. The strongest theme here was actually building relationships. This was what children and the young people really wanted to focus on. So from those 6 themes, we now have 6 ideas. So relationship week, suspending a timetable for a complete week where we just focus on building relationships with staff and the young people. A complete classroom design overhaul. And actually, I think the Tomorrow's News, one of the tools that we use, IKEA sponsored the whole redesign of the school, which would be fantastic. A new 13-week block timetable where there is a concentration on theory in the morning and practical in the afternoon. So that's 1 subject per day. So you're not splitting your time across lots of 5 or 6 different subjects. Another idea was that an app would be given to young people to give the young people a louder voice in the school. and looking at different ways of accessing the curriculum outside of the traditional setting, as well as pop-up life experience is outside of the classroom and inside of the school. So since then, there's 4 out of 6 of them, I believe, to have happened. So at this point, I would like to pass over to Gillian and Doreen. I know, Gillian, you've got a little bit prepared about the progress that you guys have made and a little bit of feedback from the young people as well.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. A really nice way to describe what the work that we've done this last year, actually. And when you look at how far we've come, it's really, really exciting to think that this time last year we hadn't even heard if we'd been successful in the money for the creative curriculum. So I was just thinking about that earlier. So Relationships Week, we managed to, once the children had come up with that idea, they wanted to just to be able to spend time with staff. So we've done a couple of things with the relationships. So we've put back in, which has been removed from a structural point of view, that kind of daily check-in. So we've put that back in. We've just pinched a few minutes from a number of different periods to give them 10 minutes a day with a key adult in a small group, so that they're just checking in every morning. So that will start again in August, so that they've got that time every day just to build that relationship. But Relationship Week sounded really fun, didn't it, when the kids were going through it and they were coming up with these ideas with the members of staff. So we managed to get some funding for that, and we had planned it for May so that they would pick different activities, sporting ones, entertainment ones, different ways to learn new skills, and then staff would lead some, local relationship partners that we've got, and other businesses, local clubs would lead some, and the kids would learn where they could do some of these things that they'd like to be involved in our local area. So it's kind of double-edged sword, I guess, so that they can maybe keep going once they've had a chance, once they've developed that relationship with either someone outside school or staff in school. So that one certainly has just had to be postponed because of COVID, but is there in principle. The 13-week blocks one was really difficult to have a single subject. That just doesn't really fit with the way the structures are in Scottish education at the moment. But we've certainly started to look and see whether or not the amount of practical and what they were really talking about, although we've got it written there, Katie, as theory and practical, it was about outside classroom based experiences, wasn't it? So what we really wanted was more like visits to a site, or to find out more about a geography, or to find out.
The example that really sticks in my head is doing biology on a bike. So hitting Camperdown or hitting wherever with your bike and stopping and seeing all of the different foliage, all of the different life around you. That one really sticks with me because I'd like to do that.
Yeah. So we've made sure that we've got as much time as possible. We've got really strong sort of developing workforce links anyway, so doing a lot more of that, and then have put in a bit more structure around that. So in terms of a learning and skills framework that we've been working on, that help the young people see where the skills are that they're learning in the classroom are then transferable into the places of work or future careers, university, college, that kind of thing. So we've been a lot of work into that, and so although it's not come out as a 13-week block, I'm afraid, yet, it's certainly, is much more about where those skills link through. Reinstated our pupil council. It's kind of been a wee bit under the radar for a wee while, so we've not got an app, but we certainly have more opportunities for the young people to have their voice and to speak out and get opportunities to hear what they're saying to us. And we've just this last couple of weeks timetabled a slot for service design into the S2 curriculum, so that they'll have a chance, a timetable period on a rotation to actually learn a little bit more about what service design is and what creative thinking is, and how it doesn't have to be an art teacher where you learn creativity, which I think is just so important. So Mel and I had been doing the course with you guys, getting our PDA in service design, so we're going to have a wee block in there to teach some second years a little bit about what it means to listen to service users and give them a voice about what they'd like to. So some little projects we need to come up with now for them to go and service design themselves, in their lessons. And then the pop-up life experiences is one we've got planning, and we're hoping to run this year. Even if it's just the opportunity to find find out about how to change a tyre, or they were some of the things the kids came up with. They wanted to learn how to cook a budget meal, or they wanted to be able to know how to budget their shopping next week. So some of the things that we maybe just take for granted. We have started with first aid, so we've run first aid. The kids have all had a chance to sign up for first aid lessons, and loads of them did that, and all the different year groups, we've got different business links that we've got relationships with to come in and run first aid for different year groups. So we've managed to start with that, but we've got a few other ones in the pipeline for the coming year.
Yeah, I think we've got a lot of exciting opportunities going forward, and we have been developing different employability pathways with you guys, doing different workshops there, because there was a lot of influence and a lot of insight into, you know, what happens next after school. So thank you so much, Gillian. That's given us an insight into where you guys are now, and although you're maybe not fulfilling completely, you're being honest and open about exactly the expectations that we can expect from your restraints, your barriers, but also the opportunities for change and improvement. So thank you so much for your input.
Just add in a couple of bits, Katie, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Doreen.
Yeah, I think what a real constraining factor that we are trying to find solutions around is the fact that we're still tweaking within a system, and actually I'm not sure that the system is fit for purpose. So they keep the barriers that we keep coming up against, not meaning that we're not going to try and find solutions around them. But one example would be the app. We had a serious look at a school app, and I rejected it, and I rejected it on the fact it was an information giving service that was one way, and actually it wasn't about pupil voice. So I felt as though the purpose of it was actually the wrong way around right from the very start, and it was the wrong audience for me. And that would just be one of the kind of issues around it. The 13-week block, we had an interesting kind of discussion through our sort of reopening plan. We were one of the few schools that actually looked at, that I was aware of at that time, that looked at bigger blocks of learning. And actually it was about reducing the number of subjects in the day through the reopening kind of model. And it was bearing that in mind about what the young people had said through the work that you had done with our young people. And it would have given some of that opportunity, but we'll see where we are in August.
That's all to come.
The one we have done well was the one that we didn't think we were going to get to this year, is it, Doreen? The one that's not got a tick is the assessing the school curriculum outside of the school building. I think we've maybe done that one actually for the last 13 weeks, and we've certainly got plans as to how we continue that when August comes and we are back in the building, because we're not going back to just the same old paper processes that we've had in the past. So
no, and I think that's actually something that we've all been feeling is that although this is a terrible pandemic across the world, it's maybe given us a fast forward button on a few things, and actually the positives, we need to keep focusing on them as we go forward. So major changes across the curriculum, major changes across the way that we actually approach learning and the things that are important to the young people. And I just wanted to highlight some of the feedback that we had. So we do, I liked, I learned, and I suggest exactly as we'll be suggesting for you guys to feedback on this session. But some of the feedback that came from the young people was actually they liked finding out about different activities, about the different things that everybody else wanted to know, that their problems were shared, that they weren't the only people that were going through this, and that they were given the opportunity to unleash their imagination to the max. So giving them the platform to be creative, to play, to do something different, and to learn new skills. And you'll have seen me beaming from ear to ear when Gillian said that the service design is being introduced to a second year curriculum. That is just immense progress to me, and I couldn't be happier about that. So yes, so that is basically my story. And what I wanted to do was give you the tool that I put the story with. So throughout my slides, you will have seen little icons going through the slides. So the hero at the start was Arbroath Academy. The event that happened was that the data came to light that the curriculum wasn't fit for purpose and there was a need for change, that there was a goal, that the education was for all and not just for a specific few, that there was obstacles in the way, and that we've reflected on the many barriers that have come across that we're trying to overcome. We've highlighted that there was a mentor in there, that Service Design Academy came in and bringing the rest of the community with that in a structured way, using service design as the process. We've managed to co-design a journey that isn't exactly easy, but we're overcoming each obstacle as we come, and there's many lessons to be learned in here. That the young people actually are experts of their own opinion. And during one of the workshops in our Growth Academy, one of the seniors, one of the more mature staff had said to me, you know, I've been doing this for 25 years. What's to say that young people know more than me? And I completely understand where they're coming from. You know, this is your career, this is what you've been doing forever, but actually we need to change, and we need to involve people in that and listen to the young people, because they continue to teach me things every day I would have no idea about. And then the change. So there's been lots, as Gillian and Doreen helped me to explain. And you'll see that I've done this in a little bit of a different order, but this is based on the story stack that was introduced to us. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass over to Kev, who's going to introduce you to the story stack, and he's going to give you a little bit of a going to the movies exercise.
Hi, see, I'm unmuting myself now. Nice to meet you all. First of all, brilliant to be here. Really appreciate getting to hear all your stories. Thanks for sharing those stories. A lot of really inspiring messages, very personal messages, and some very kind of organisational specific. So I think really, really interesting. Really pleased and delighted to see Katie practically use the story stack model so well. I think you know, well done. This is how the story stack model started in 2016. Lego Duplo. And actually, Katie's just illustrated one of the kind of principles behind the model. It's very much a framework. It's not a formula. So the reason that it's built in Lego is so that you can actually just move things around and change. Because if we tell the same story in the same way all the time, it gets pretty dull. I'm a creative person, so having a formula wouldn't work for me. So yeah, so it evolved from that to this. Okay, so one of the best ways that I find for getting people comfortable with the concept of the story stack is to forget about organizational things, business things, or in your case, the world of education, and use a more fun method to teach the model. So I have an exercise I do in all my workshops called going to the movies, and the whole idea is that we learn the principles by using the story stack for really what it's intended for. It's any form of story, and the model that I've created is very much based around filmmaking. So what we're going to get you to do, and Katie will kind of introduce more specifically the actual session, but we want you to have a shot at this, right? We want you to have a go at creating your own story stack of a movie. Now, if some of you are already way ahead and are seeing this and want to go and tell a story, related to your work, then absolutely not an issue at all. You can do that. But for everyone else, I think starting with a movie really, really helps cement it. So I'm sure when you look at me, you see a highly sophisticated, erudite man who will obviously have a very sophisticated movie choice in order to illustrate my point. So let me just share. Let me share a photo with you, and yeah. So this is my really highbrow movie example that I am going to share with you, okay? So I am a simple man of simple tastes, and my favourite all-time movie is Star Wars: A New Hope. So I'm going to talk you through each stage of that movie using the story stack. So at the start of the film, we meet our hero, Luke, and when we meet him, he is a farm boy. In terms of his goal, the really clear thing is that he doesn't want to be a farm boy. He wants a life of adventure. He wants to travel off and see the world. Now, the event that really triggers everything, and in movie terms, they call it the inciting incident. It's the thing that sets the story forward, that propels the story. So the event in this case was meeting the droids. So meeting R2-D2, meeting C-3PO, and R2-D2 sharing the message from Princess Leia. That's really what catapults the story. So what are the obstacles? What are the barriers that are in his way? Well, fundamentally, it's his uncle's wishes. His uncle, and I imagine he's done it for every single year, says just one more year, you know, just one more season, just one more thing. And then we have the mentor. So who is it that supports our hero? In the original movie, it's Obi-Wan Kenobi. In future movies, it's Yoda. But for this particular one, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he's your classic mentor. He's just a geezer with a beard who offers advice, offers guidance. It's never about him. It's all about how he serves Luke Skywalker, the hero of the story. Then we have the journey, and the journey in movie terms is the set piece elements. What are those moments that you remember more than anything from the film that you're going to talk us through? So in the journey for us in the Star Wars A New Hope, it's, you know, death, explosions, bang, you know, lots of individual things happen. But my favourite scene is in the trash compactor when they almost get squished. So what's the change that we go through all of this? We get to the end of the movie. How has our hero changed? So Luke is different because he's identified that he's now got this thing called the Force. He's no longer the farm boy that we met at the start of the movie. His life has changed forever. And the lesson, as I glibly say here, as one lesson, is that you should trust men with beards. That's a little bit self-serving, though. But the other lesson is that, you know, a group of people, a disparate group of people from different organisations, different backgrounds, different cultures can work together to solve a common problem. And I think that's a universal message that applies really well to education as well. So that is the story stack in action. That is an example. What would be great now, I'm going to hand back to Katie, and hopefully you can think of your favourite movie. Just one thing, don't try and use the movie Inception, okay? Doesn't work here, okay? There'll be some movies that will cause more confusion than anything. So hopefully you find the exercise enjoyable and it'll help you learn the process. Over to you, Katie.
Excellent, thank you very much, Kev. So if you want to, what I'll do is I will put up a picture of the story stack, and like Kev says, we would love you to give it a go. If you're confident to do it about your work life, about something that you've recently been doing, fantastic. If not, revert to the movie or a favourite book or a favourite TV programme, anything that has that hero, mentor, obstacle, challenge in it. So we will give you 5 minutes to do this, and then we'll be heading right into a break before we hit our quiz exercise, our EDUJAM quiz with some drinks, which is going to be hosted by the Muir boys. So that's Chris and Doug, his son. Okay, so we wanted to make a little announcement about EDUJAM. So I'll be passing over to Jean at the moment. Cheers, Jean.
Cheers. Thank you very much. Right, we're so excited about the EDUJAM that we're going to be running in September. We're going to have a sister event at Helsinki in Finland. So they're going to be running a jam, an Edu Design Jam, in the morning of Friday the 11th of September. And our jam will sort of dovetail with theirs. So we're looking to potentially make it the 12th, 13th, possibly the 11th as well. We do have a line open on Padlet for your thoughts about that. What do you want from the jam? I mean, we had a session where we looked at what we wanted the jam to be and the shape, size, format, things like that, but we're still listening to you. We're still listening to what you want from the jam. So please, if you've got any thoughts or comments, do leave your thoughts and comments on the Padlet. We are also looking for people to help us organise and get the jam together. So there are some key roles that we'll be putting up on our website fairly shortly, which are things around communications, coordinator, some sort of digital champion, someone to look after the speakers, someone to coordinate the mentors. And obviously we've got a website already, but Jennifer Robertson of Glasgow runs for us, but we really love to have some more help with that as well. We're going to be having a session for coordinators, which will be taking place in July. So if you want to get in touch either directly with me, that's my email, muttonjean@gmail.com. By all means, please do. We've already had some people get in touch, which is fantastic. Or you can contact us directly on the SDineducation@gmail.com email as well. And we just really love to get you involved as coordinators or as attendees. Either way will be fantastic. So there'll be more information coming out about that on our website soon, but we'll also be emailing you to keep you up to date with what's happening and next steps.